welcome back to the full color apple tutorial, and we'll be picking up where we left off, and we're going to start working on the backgrounds and some of the accents, which would be the darks and the lights. And I'm also going to go back and try to get some more pleasing colors, because as I mentioned in the other tutorial, I had used black as my outline, and I realized that that ended up mixing with colors to create some muddy colors that I didn't want. So I used an eraser like this to try to get rid of some of it, and I also went back over it with a little bit of burnt sienna. So when you go to do your apple, learn from my mistake and maybe use some burnt sienna instead of the black, since that's such a strong color and it's hard to get rid of if you make a mistake, and it also seems to mix with the colors quite a bit. So I'm going to start with going from warm to cool. So we're going to go back into that warm yellow gold color to give us something a little warmer, I hope. So I'm starting out with a lemon yellow. And then bringing that up to other areas where I see it in the apple. And repeating the colors will help to create something called color harmony, and it'll just help pull everything together. So now I'm going to try to add some yellow ochre, which is a warmer yellow, try to bring some warmth to that feeling of acid green. And you can go ahead and try to smooth out that outline as you go along, just to get rid of that feeling of flatness. It's just a guideline to get your drawing started, but you really want it to be more about the form and the shading than the outline for this project. So maybe I'll add a little more up here. So now I'm going to switch over to sort of a light red. And if you look in the photo, it's pretty intense of a red color. So I'm going to go ahead and be a little more heavy-handed this time. We've been slowly building it up. I'll look for other areas where I see the red. Start blocking that in, and at this point you can start using a little bit more pressure. You don't have to be quite so cautious. I want to leave a little more grain still. And then I'm going to move on to things getting a little bit cooler with the alizarin crimson. So as the apple is turning away from the light, the colors become cooler and darker. So I'm going to mix a little bit of alizarin and also a little bit of red, just to try to create a little bit of repetition. And I'm going to use that black under there for my advantage and just make that the darkest part of my shadow that goes right underneath the apple. Darken that up a little bit. Maybe tone it down with a little bit of burnt sienna. And you can make your own black a little more interesting by adding other colors to the black. So first I added some blue, and then I added some green. And I just dropped my blue. So now I'm going to come over here into some of those darker pieces and try to create some more definition, some violet accents here. So these strokes are a little bit more linear. So I'm going over it with a little bit of alizarin. And I'm constantly, comparing it to what I see in my photo. And you'd want to do the same thing if you were working from life. I have an apple here. So if you were having trouble figuring out how to draw the apple, it might be a good idea to maybe go to the grocery store and grab yourself an apple that has, a little bit of multicolor, and then you can use that as your model, to figure out the contour lines if you were having some trouble with that. So let's move on to the side area here. Try to always make sure that the shadowed side is darker in value than that light area. Bring a little bit more dark under here. And going to increase the pressure a bit more to get a darker tone. So you can get something a little bit darker just by increasing the pressure. You don't necessarily have to rush to the black just to make something a little bit darker. And then same thing goes for something lighter. If you want to make maybe an orange lighter, you could reach for your yellow first. And if that doesn't give you a light enough tone, then you can reach for the white. So one more thing I'm going to address is the background. Now in this book that I'm taking the tutorial from, they recommended a soft green, which is a complementary color. If you recall from your color scale, red and green are opposite colors that emphasize each other. So since everything here is so saturated, I'm going to go for a more muted tone of green. So I'm going to start with this, and this is sort of like a light yellow green, and just lightly, fill that in so I can mix up my own green. Then I'm going to go back over with something a little darker, just to give it an edge. So when you have something lighter against something darker, it does create an edge, and it helps it stand out from the page. So we're really emphasizing our apple. So I am deviating a little bit from what's in your book. I'm using a little more artistic license. I used this handy dandy Clark & Kensington paint chip to get some ideas about a background color. So I'm going to pick something probably in this range, sort of an olive green for the background, just to make it a little more interesting. So we'll keep moving around, and it'll also help cover up those notations I had. So it'll kill two birds with one stone. Alright. So you can see how it's starting to really, take shape. Maybe this is the top of your table.